like how DIY tech is getting so big these days?
Yeah.
It's like everyone's out there building their own computers and robots, even 3D printers.
I know, right? It's pretty amazing.
So speaking of 3D printers today, we're going to dive into one that's like causing a stir in the whole maker community.
Okay.
The LDO Voron 2.4.
Ah, yeah, I've heard about that one.
So our source today is this really detailed review of the LDO Voron 2.4 300 RevD, and it's from 3D printing industry.
Okay.
So for this deep dive, we're like on a mission to figure out if this DIY kit really lives up to all the hype. You know?
And does it actually deliver?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Is it really a high-performance, customizable 3D printer that's worth all the time and effort?
Right, because it's not just buying it off the shelf.
No, not at all. Especially for our listeners out there who are like serious hobbyists.
Yeah.
Or even professionals who are looking for something more than just the basic models.
Definitely something more advanced. The reviewer seemed pretty impressed overall.
Yeah.
But we're going to look at, like, the pros and the cons.
For sure.
Help you decide if this is the right machine for you.
Exactly. So we're going to break down the tech, the build process, and the performance.
Sounds good.
Give you all the information you need to decide.
Okay.
So first things first, what makes this Voron 2.4 so special? What's all the buzz about?
Well, it really taps into that, like, maker spirit,
Yeah.
There's something so satisfying about building something complex with your own hands, understanding how it all works at, like, a fundamental level.
It's not just like snapping some Legos together.
No, definitely not. This is a serious project.
Okay.
But the rewards are pretty substantial.
Like what kind of rewards are we talking about?
We're talking about a machine with an open source design,
Okay.
meaning you can customize it and upgrade it however you want.
Wow.
There's a huge community online sharing modifications and improvements all the time.
That's so cool.
It also uses a Core XY motion system, which sounds technical, but what it means is incredibly smooth and fast movements. And that means higher quality prints, especially when you need fine details.
That makes sense. And then I was reading about the materials that it can handle.
Oh, yeah.
Like the typical plastics like ABS and PLA, but also high performance materials like nylon and even flexible TPU.
It can handle a pretty wide range.
That is a really wide range.
It is.
And it does all this with a build volume of 300 by 300 by 280 millimeters, which is pretty impressive for a desktop-sized machine.
And you can print some pretty large objects.
Yeah, you could.
And the review even mentioned that it can handle batch production with, like, excellent repeatability.
Oh, wow.
Meaning each part is virtually identical.
So that's really important for professionals.
Yeah, or anyone who needs consistency in their prints.
Right. And speaking of high-quality components, the review mentioned some top-of-the-line parts, like a Bondtech extruder, E3D Revo nozzles, and an LDO Leviathan controller.
Likes a fancy name.
I know, right? What does all that mean for someone who might not be familiar with all the technical terms? Like, what kind of impact do those parts have on the overall performance of the printer?
Well, think of it this way. They've chosen components known for precision, reliability, and performance.
Okay.
It's like building a high-end gaming PC.
Yeah.
You're not going to skimp on the graphics card or processor if you want the best experience.
Right.
The Bondtech extruder, for example, makes sure that the filament, which is the plastic material used for printing, is fed into the printer smoothly and consistently.
Okay.
The E3D Revo nozzles are known for their heat distribution and ability to create fine details.
So they all work together to give you, like, the best results.
Exactly. But before you get too excited and run out to buy a soldering iron...
there's a catch, isn't there?
There is.
Yeah.
The build process is not for the faint of heart.
Okay.
The review estimates around 50 hours of assembly and programming.
50 hours?
Yeah.
That's like building a piece of furniture.
It's a big commitment, no doubt.
Wow.
But for the right person, it can be incredibly rewarding. Think about the satisfaction of building this complex machine and having it work flawlessly.
It's true.
Plus, you're gaining valuable skills along the way that you can apply to other projects.
I guess it's not just about the destination, but the journey itself.
Exactly. And to help you along that journey, LDO provides pre-cut wires and crimped connectors.
Oh, that's nice.
Which can save you a lot of time and hassle.
Good to hear. So it's not all doom and gloom on the assembly front?
No.
But let's be honest, even with some helpful pre-assembly, it sounds like you still need some decent technical skills to pull this off.
Yeah, for sure.
What would you say are the must-haves for someone thinking about this build?
You definitely need some experience with electronics, especially soldering.
Okay.
And a healthy dose of patience for troubleshooting is essential.
Right.
But the good news is you don't have to go it alone.
Oh, good.
There's a very active and supportive Voron community on Discord, which is a platform for online communication.
Yeah, I know Discord.
People share tips, tricks, and help each other through the process.
That's great.
So even if you hit a snag, you're not stuck.
That's a huge relief. It's like having a virtual team of experts guiding you through every step.
Pretty much.
So we've established that this Voron 2.4, it's a powerful machine packed with high-end components, but it's also a serious undertaking that requires time, scale, and a willingness to learn.
For sure.
But once you've conquered the build, how does it actually perform?
Yeah, that's the big question.
That's what we'll be diving into next.
Okay, let's get to it.
Stay with us. You won't want to miss this. Okay, so we've talked about what makes the Voron 2.4 unique.
Yeah.
But now let's get down to, like, how does it actually perform in the real world?
Right, the important stuff.
The reviewer put it through a ton of tests.
Yeah, they did a really thorough job.
They really did, and the results are interesting. They started with a repeatability test, which seems pretty important.
Yeah, especially if you're using a 3D printer for, like, professional applications.
Right, exactly.
So why is repeatability so important?
Yeah, what does that even mean in this context?
It's all about consistency.
Okay.
So imagine you need to print a batch of identical parts, maybe for a prototype or a small production run.
Right.
You need to know that each part will be basically the same.
So like minimal variation in the dimension.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You want them to be as close to identical as possible.
Makes sense. So you're basically making sure the printer can produce the same part over and over.
Exactly. Without any surprises.
Okay, and how did the Voron do?
It did really well.
Oh, good.
They printed multiple sets of like squares, hexagons, tubes.
Okay.
And measured each one super carefully.
Wow.
And the average deviation was tiny.
Tiny? Like, how tiny are we talking?
Less than 0.1 millimeters.
Wow.
Which is like well within acceptable limits for most professional applications.
That's reassuring.
It is.
But then they tested it with circular shapes.
Yeah, that's where things got a little trickier.
What's so hard about printing circles?
Well, it's not just about the printer itself.
Okay.
It's about how it's mechanically designed to handle those curved movements.
So like the tension on the belts and stuff?
Exactly. And while the Voron still performed better than a lot of other desktop 3D printers, it did struggle a bit with accuracy and consistency when printing those circular shapes.
So maybe not the ideal machine if you're planning to print a ton of like perfectly round objects.
Probably not.
Okay, so let's move on to something else challenging in 3D printing.
Oh.
Overhangs and bridges.
Yeah, those can be tricky.
They can be like make or break moments for a 3D printer.
Totally. You really see what a printer is capable of.
Right, so for those who don't know, can you explain what those are?
Sure. So overhangs are like parts of a print that stick out horizontally.
Okay.
Without any support underneath.
So like a roof or a little shelf.
Exactly. And bridges are similar, but they span a gap between 2 points. These are tough because the printed material can sag or droop if it doesn't cool down fast enough.
I've seen some pretty bad 3D print fails online with like overhangs and bridges gone wrong.
Oh yeah, it happens a lot.
But it sounds like the Voron handled those pretty well.
It did surprisingly well.
Okay, tell me more.
It handled overhangs up to a 65-degree angle.
Wow.
Before showing any signs of warping.
That's impressive.
And it even printed a 60-millimeter bridge.
Okay.
Without any major issues.
That's like more than double what most printers can handle.
It is pretty remarkable.
So it sounds like the cooling system is a big part of that success.
Absolutely. The cooling system on this thing is top-notch.
So that superior cooling is all thanks to the design and the premium components.
Exactly. It all works together.
Yeah.
To create a machine that can handle really complex shapes and push the limits of desktop 3D printing.
That's amazing. But I know there's one more big test.
Yeah, the 3DPI benchmark.
Okay, so tell me about this benchmark. What does it actually measure?
It's a standardized test developed by 3D printing industry. And it puts printers through a whole series of challenges to see how well they perform.
So like dimensional accuracy, fine detail rendering, overhangs, bridges,
all of
the materials.
Yep, it's like an obstacle course for 3D printers.
I love that analogy. So how did the Voron do?
It got a really impressive score.
Okay, what was it?
87.41 out of 100.
Wow.
Which puts it ahead of a lot of commercial 3D printers out there.
That's a big deal considering it's a DIY kit.
It is.
But the reviewer didn't just take it out of the box and run the test right.
No, they actually spent a whole week tweaking the printer.
Oh, wow.
like the hardware firmware slicer settings.
So they really took advantage of that open source nature
Exactly.
to optimize it to get the best performance.
And that's what sets the Voron apart.
Yeah.
You have the freedom to tinker and experiment.
It's not just a set it and forget it machine.
Right. You can really dial in the settings to suit your needs.
I like that a lot. So it's not all just about numbers and benchmarks, though.
No, definitely not.
The reviewer also printed some real-world parts.
Yeah, to see how it would perform in practical applications.
Yeah. I was really interested in that soft claw grip.
Oh, yeah, that was a cool.
And the motorcycle airbox lid.
Those were some great examples.
They were. The claw grip with all the intricate details and moving parts, that really shows its precision.
Yeah, and its ability to create complex mechanisms.
And the fact that they printed the airbox lid out of ABS, which is a really durable material, shows that it can handle more than just like prototypes and trinkets.
Right. It can create functional parts for real-world use.
And then there were those high-performance materials tests.
Oh, yeah.
They printed a bicycle bottle holder out of high-temperature nylon.
Which is a really tough material to work with.
Yeah, I heard that.
It absorbs moisture so easily.
Yeah, moisture is bad during printing.
It can cause all sorts of problems, like warping and inconsistent extrusion.
But the Voron still managed to print it.
It did. They had a few minor flaws.
Okay.
But they printed a functional bottle holder.
Wow.
Showing that it can work with those demanding materials.
That's impressive.
And then they printed a whole shoe.
Made a whole shoe.
Out of flexible TPU.
Out of a shoe. What? Okay, that's amazing.
It is. It just shows the printer's versatility.
That's awesome.
And the creativity of the maker community.
Right. You're not limited to just small objects.
Right.
You can really explore the full potential of 3D printing.
Exactly.
So we've covered a lot here.
We have.
The Voron's performance, its ability to handle those complex shapes, its versatility with materials.
It's a really impressive machine.
It is. But it's not for everyone, right?
That's the big question.
It is. Who is this printer really for?
Yeah, and what does it tell us about the future of 3D printing?
That's what we'll explore next. Okay, so we've seen that the LDO Voron 2.4 is really impressive.
Yeah, it's a beast.
But it's also a pretty big commitment.
Yeah, definitely not your average 3D printer.
Not the one you just pull out of the box and start printing.
Not at all. This is for a special type of person.
Someone who really likes to tinker. You know?
Yeah, someone who gets excited about figuring things out.
Someone who sees that 50-hour build time and thinks challenge accepted.
Exactly. They see it as part of the fun.
I like that. So someone who really values customization and wants to, like, push the limits.
Yeah, they want to see what's possible.
The reviewer called them hacker-minded makers.
I love that.
I think it's perfect.
It really captures the spirit.
It does. And there's a whole community of them.
There is. It's awesome.
It's like a subculture almost.
It is. Centered around these open source projects.
Yeah, like the Voron Discord server.
Oh, yeah. That's a great example.
It's super active.
People are constantly sharing their builds and modifications.
Helping each other troubleshoot problems.
Yeah. It's a really supportive community.
So you're not just buying a printer, you're joining a movement.
You are. It's bigger than just 3D printing.
You're about, like, taking control of technology.
Exactly.
Understanding how it works.
Sharing that knowledge.
I love that. It's empowering.
It is.
Yeah.
You're not just a consumer, you're a creator.
And it makes me think about the future of 3D printing.
Yeah. Where is it all going?
Because we're seeing these user-friendly printers.
The plug-and-play ones?
Which are great for accessibility.
Definitely makes it easier for anyone to get started.
But I think there will always be a place for these DIY kits.
I agree.
For the people who want to go deeper.
To understand the nuts and bolts.
And to have the freedom to create something truly unique.
It's a different level of control.
It is. And who knows, maybe someday you'll be designing your own 3D printer.
That'd be awesome.
Sharing your innovations with everyone.
I love that idea.
So before we wrap up,
yeah,
I have to ask, if you could 3D print anything with a machine like this, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
It is a tough one.
I think I'd go for something with multiple functions.
Okay.
Like a tool that transforms or a self-assembling structure.
That's cool. What about you? I'm picturing a device that can scan an object and then print a tiny replica.
Oh.
Like a personal replicator.
That is so cool.
Right. It's like Star Trek stuff.
It is. It really shows the potential of 3D printing.
It sparks the imagination.
There are endless possibilities.
It really is a technology in its early stages.
Definitely. We've only just scratched the surface.
And it all starts with that curiosity.
That desire to create.
So listeners, what would you create with a 3D printer?
Yeah, tell us your ideas.
Share them with us on social media. We'd love to hear them.
Until next time, keep diving deep.
And keep those creative gears turning.
And maybe we'll see your 3D printed masterpieces out in the world someday.
That's a great point. We might just see them out there.